Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Monday morning dawned in a cacophony of light and shadows, its arrival neither welcome nor novel. Through the half-drawn blinds, rays slanted onto a landscape of disorder, where empty coffee cups littered the nightstand, now transformed into a battleground for discarded business reports. The blaring alarm clock, relentless in its duty, rang for the third time, rousing a groan from the depths of the bed's cocoon. Meet Finley Barnes, Monday morning's sworn adversary, who at that moment was contemplating mutiny against his immediate responsibilities. After 6 arduous years, which had catapulted him to the prestigious role of senior analyst, Finley's body ached from the weekly ritual of rebellion against the early hours. "Coffee first," he mumbled, his voice hoarse, his hand sweeping across the bedside table in a frantic search for the annoying clock's snooze button. With that, the alarm's relentless clatter faded into silence, leaving only the hushed atmosphere of the apartment to fill the room. His roommate Patricia must have already left for her early hospital shift. They'd shared the 2-bedroom downtown apartment for nearly 3 years, an arrangement that worked well despite their opposite schedules and personalities. Finley shuffled toward the bathroom, eyes half closed. His morning routine ran on autopilot: shower, shave, brush teeth. The mirror revealed a tired 32-year-old man with disheveled brown hair and 3 days' worth of stubble. He ran his electric razor over his face, not bothering with a close shave. Back in his bedroom, he pulled on charcoal slacks and a white button-down shirt. The quarterly strategy meeting was today, which meant a tie was non-negotiable. He grabbed a navy silk one from his closet, knotting it with practiced ease. The coffee maker in the kitchen hadn't been started. Finley frowned, checking his watch. He'd have to grab something on the way. No time for breakfast, either. The quarterly projections folder sat ready on the counter where he'd left it the night before. Heading toward the front door, he stopped at the small entryway closet. His black Oxfords should be there, placed neatly beside Patricia's extensive shoe collection. Reaching blindly inside while checking emails on his phone, his fingers closed around what felt like dress shoes. Finley slipped them on without looking down, grabbed his briefcase and projections folder, and headed out the door. The elevator ride to the lobby was uneventful, though he did notice an elderly woman giving him an odd sideways glance. He checked his tie, wondering if it was crooked, but everything seemed in place. Outside, the city was already humming with activity. Finley joined the stream of professionals heading toward the financial district, his mind already organizing talking points for the meeting. The coffee cart near the subway entrance provided his much-needed caffeine fix, and it wasn't until he was waiting on the platform, warming his hands on the paper cup, that he became aware of something strange. His feet felt off balance, unstable. He looked down. What the? Bright red stiletto heels, Patricia's favorite pair, the 5-inch ones she only wore for special occasions. Finley nearly spilled his coffee. Several commuters turned to stare at him, a man in business attire wearing women's red stiletto heels. "No, no, no," he whispered, heat rushing to his face. How had he not noticed? The clicking sound on the lobby tiles should have been a giveaway. The elderly woman's strange look now made perfect sense. His first impulse was to run back home, but a quick check of his watch confirmed his worst fear. The strategy meeting started in 20 minutes. Going back meant missing it entirely. As a senior analyst whose projections would be central to the discussion, his absence would be career suicide. The subway doors opened. Finley hesitated for just a moment before stepping in, trying to walk as normally as possible in the unfamiliar footwear. Each step was precarious, his ankles wobbling slightly. He grabbed a pole for support, avoiding eye contact with the other passengers. His mind raced through options. He could claim a bizarre accident, or perhaps say nothing and hope no one noticed. No, that was absurd. A man in red stilettos would definitely draw attention. By the time he reached his stop, Finley had settled on a plan. It wasn't great, but it was better than the truth, that he was so caffeine-deprived he'd grabbed his female roommate's party shoes. He exited the subway, walking carefully to avoid toppling over. The Westfield Financial Building loomed ahead, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun. Finley took a deep breath and strode toward the entrance with as much confidence as he could muster.
ID, please,
the security guard said, then did a double-take as his gaze traveled downward.
Those are some shoes, Mr. Barnes.
Finley forced a smile. Charity Awareness Day for
heart disease.
The guard raised an eyebrow but nodded, waving him through.
Good cause.
The elevator ride to the 14th floor was mercifully empty. Finley practiced walking, finding that if he kept his weight on the balls of his feet and took shorter steps, he could maintain some semblance of dignity. As the doors opened to his floor, he squared his shoulders. The open office layout meant there was no sneaking to his desk unnoticed.
Just get to the meeting room,
he told himself. Sit down before anyone sees. Morning, Finley, called Diane from accounting as he passed her desk. Her eyes widened at his footwear. Wow, making a statement today. Heart disease awareness, he replied without breaking stride. Red for heart health. Other colleagues noticed as he made his way through the office. Some stared openly, others whispered behind their hands. Finley kept moving, face burning but determined. Greg Martinez, his direct supervisor, was already in the conference room setting up his presentation. He looked up as Finley entered.
There you are. I need those Q3 projections.
His sentence cut off as he spotted the heels.
That's an interesting choice.
It's for charity, Finley said quickly, sliding into a chair and tucking his feet under the table.
Heart Disease Awareness Day.
Greg looked confused.
I didn't get that memo.
It was last minute. My roommate works at City Hospital. They're doing a fundraiser.
Right.
Greg didn't look entirely convinced, but seemed willing to let it go.
Well, let's focus on the meeting. The executive team will be here any minute.
As other colleagues filtered in, Finley kept his feet hidden, relieved to be seated. He arranged his papers, trying to project normalcy, though he caught several curious glances. The meeting began with CEO Margaret Wilson addressing the room. Halfway through her opening remarks, she paused, looking directly at Finley. Mr. Barnes, I couldn't help but notice your footwear when you walked in. That's quite a statement. All eyes turned to him. Finley felt his mouth go dry.
It's for a heart disease charity event,
he managed. My roommate's hospital is running a Walk a Mile in Her Shoes campaign. A smile spread across Margaret's face. That's wonderful. My mother died of heart disease. It's so important to raise awareness. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Finley detected respect in the glances now being cast his way. Brave choice, commented Vivian from legal. Those can't be comfortable. They're challenging, Finley admitted, earning a few chuckles. Well, I applaud your commitment, Margaret said. Now, let's see those quarterly projections you're famous for. The meeting proceeded, and against all odds, Finley's presentation was a success. His projections were well received, and his confidence grew as he spoke, momentarily forgetting about his unusual footwear. As the meeting adjourned, several colleagues approached to ask about the charity. Finley improvised details, promising to forward information about donations. Even Greg seemed impressed by his commitment. "Never would have pegged you for the charitable type, Barnes," he remarked. "Good to see you have depths." Back at his desk, Finley received several congratulatory emails about his presentation. More surprisingly, there were expressions of support for his bold statement and willingness to step outside gender norms for a good cause. By lunchtime, the story had spread throughout the office. Finley found himself approached by colleagues who'd never spoken to him before. One senior executive shared a story about his wife's heart surgery. Another confided that her brother was a drag queen who would totally approve of breaking gender barriers. As the day progressed, Finley made a startling discovery. He was getting used to the heels. The initial discomfort had faded, and he'd developed a walking technique that felt almost natural. More surprising was how the shoes seemed to change how people interacted with him. Colleagues who'd previously dismissed him as just another analytics guy now saw him as innovative, compassionate, and courageous. When end of day arrived, Finley had received more positive feedback than at any other point in his 6-year career. Patricia was home when he returned to the apartment, cooking dinner in the kitchen. "There you are!" she exclaimed. "I've been texting you all day. You won't believe what happened." She stopped abruptly, staring at his feet. "Are those my Christian Louboutins?" Finley carefully removed the stilettos, his feet sighing with relief. "I grabbed them by mistake this morning. Didn't realize until I was already at the subway." Patricia's expression cycled through shock, outrage, and finally amusement. "You wore my red stilettos to work? At your stuffy financial firm?" "I didn't have a choice. I had the strategy meeting." "So you just, what, strutted into the office like it was normal?" Finley explained his Charity Awareness Day fabrication, while Patricia dissolved into laughter. "You could have said they were a dare or a lost bet," she suggested, wiping tears from her eyes. "But no! You invented an entire charity campaign!" "It worked, didn't it?" Finley defended himself. "In fact, it more than worked. People were impressed. Even Margaret Wilson approved." Patricia studied him with newfound interest. "And how did it feel? Being in heels all day?" Finley considered the question. "Painful at first. Then, interesting. Different. People treated me differently. Better or worse? Better, actually. Like I was suddenly more than just the numbers guy." Patricia nodded thoughtfully. "Presentation matters. The right accessories can transform how people see you." She examined her stilettos for damage. "These weren't cheap, by the way. You're lucky they survived." "I'll buy you a new pair if they're ruined," Finley promised. "But they might have changed my career trajectory today." That night, as he lay in bed, Finley found himself thinking about the day's events. He'd worn women's shoes as a mistake, covered with a flimsy excuse, yet it had somehow elevated his standing at work. People had seen him differently, as braver, more interesting, more complex. It was just a pair of shoes, he told himself. But something had shifted, both in how others perceived him and in how he saw himself. The next morning, as Finley dressed for work, he found himself hesitating at the closet. His black Oxfords sat where they should have been yesterday. Beside them were Patricia's numerous shoes, including several pairs of more modest women's flats. Before he could second-guess himself, He knocked on Patricia's bedroom door. "Come in," she called. Finley opened the door to find her applying makeup at her vanity. "Quick question. Would it be weird if I borrowed a less dramatic pair of your shoes today? For work?" Patricia turned to look at him, surprise evident on her face. "You want to wear women's shoes again? On purpose this time?" "The charity story worked so well," he explained hastily. "I thought maybe I should follow through for a few days. Make it seem more legitimate." "Right," Patricia said slowly, a knowing smile spreading across her face. "For the fictional charity." "Exactly." She considered for a moment. "My black flats might fit you. They're pretty neutral looking." "Perfect." That day at work, the black flats drew far less attention than the red stilettos, but Finley still received approving nods from those who'd witnessed yesterday's display. He found himself standing taller, speaking more confidently in meetings. Over the following weeks, a strange pattern developed. Finley began alternating between his men's Oxfords and borrowed pairs of Patricia's more understated women's shoes. The charity awareness excuse eventually faded, replaced by a simple shrug and "I find them comfortable" when anyone commented. Most surprising was how quickly it became accepted as just another of Finley's quirks. The financial district might be conservative in many ways, but in a city known for its diversity, a man occasionally wearing women's shoes barely registered as unusual after the initial surprise. Patricia, for her part, seemed amused by the development. One evening, she returned home with a shopping bag. "These were on sale," she said casually, tossing the bag to Finley. "Thought they might fit you better than borrowing mine." Inside was a pair of women's Oxfords in brown leather, professional looking, with just a slightly more feminine cut than men's shoes. "They're for me?" Finley asked, oddly touched. "Well, you keep stretching out mine," Patricia replied with a smirk. "Just makes practical sense." The shoes fit perfectly. The next day at work, wearing them felt like a small declaration of independence from expectations he hadn't even realized were constraining him. As months passed, Finley's wardrobe gradually expanded to include more feminine elements, first accessories, then clothing pieces. A silk scarf here, a women's blazer there. Each addition felt like a step towards something authentic, though he couldn't quite articulate what. Patricia became his unofficial style consultant, offering suggestions and honest feedback. "If you're going to do this," she insisted, "do it well." The changes weren't just external. Finley found himself caring more about his appearance, growing his brown hair longer, taking better care of his skin. He started using subtle makeup, first just concealer for dark circles, then more. At work, his career continued to flourish. The initial novelty of his style had given way to genuine respect for his analytical skills, which seemed enhanced by his growing confidence. 6 months after the red stiletto incident, he received a promotion to team lead. It was around this time that Finley first heard the term gender fluid from a new colleague in marketing. The concept resonated, offering language for what he'd been experiencing. He began researching, reading personal accounts that mirrored his own feelings. One evening, as he and Patricia shared a bottle of wine on their small balcony, Finley broached the subject that had been occupying his thoughts.
"I think I might be transgender,"
he said quietly, staring out at the city lights.
"Or at least somewhere on that spectrum."
Patricia reached over and squeezed his hand. "I've been wondering when you'd figure that out." Finley turned to her, surprised. "You knew?" "I suspected," she corrected. "The shoes were just the beginning. I've watched you discovering yourself these past months. It's been beautiful to witness." Tears sprang unexpectedly to Finley's eyes. I don't know what to do with this realization.
Whatever feels right, Patricia said simply. There's no rulebook, just your truth. The conversation marked a turning point. Finley began exploring his identity more intentionally, scheduling appointments with a therapist who specialized in gender identity. After several sessions, he decided to begin a medical transition. The process was gradual. Hormone therapy brought subtle changes: softer skin, facial features shifting slightly, emotional landscape expanding. Each change felt like coming home to a self he'd never known was waiting. As his appearance evolved, Finley made the decision to change his name. After considerable thought, Maria felt right, elegant, authentic, with a connection to his maternal grandmother, who had always encouraged him to be himself. Coming out at work was surprisingly anticlimactic. Given her previous track record of gradual style evolution, most colleagues simply adjusted to using her new name and pronouns without much fuss. The firm's HR department was supportive, updating records and ensuring bathroom access without drama. A year and a half after the morning she had accidentally grabbed Patricia's red stilettos, Maria arrived at the office for her first day as an officially recognized woman. She wore a tailored black pantsuit with a cream silk blouse. On her feet were a new pair of red stilettos, not as dramatic as Patricia's had been, but elegant and professional. Greg Martinez, now her peer rather than supervisor following her promotion, stopped by her desk mid-morning.
"Those shoes,"
he commented with a knowing smile.
"They look familiar."
Maria returned the smile. Where it all began. Who would have thought a pair of borrowed shoes would lead to all this? Greg gestured vaguely to encompass her transformed appearance. Sometimes we find ourselves in the most unexpected ways, Maria replied. That evening, Patricia had organized a small celebration dinner at their apartment with a few close friends who had supported Maria throughout her transition.
"To Maria,"
Patricia toasted, raising her glass, "who walked a mile in someone else's shoes and found her own path." "And to you," Maria added, "for having such fabulous taste in footwear." Laughter filled the apartment as glasses clinked together. Later, after the guests had gone, Maria stood in front of the full-length mirror in her bedroom. Her reflection showed a woman with shoulder-length brown hair, subtle makeup enhancing her features. The red stilettos added height to her frame, but it was the confidence in her posture that truly transformed her. She thought about the frightened, confused person who had discovered themselves wearing the wrong shoes on a routine Monday morning. How that simple mistake had cracked open a door she hadn't even known existed. Her phone chimed with a text from Richard, an account manager at work who had recently begun showing interest in her. He was asking if she'd like to grab coffee over the weekend. Maria smiled, typing an affirmative response. Patricia appeared in the doorway. "Look at you, all grown up and breaking hearts." "Hardly," Maria laughed. "Just coffee." "For now." Patricia plopped down on the bed. "So, I've been meaning to ask, any interest in helping me with the rent on this place by yourself? I've been seeing this surgeon from work, and things are getting serious." Maria turned from the mirror. "You're moving out?" "Possibly. Not right away." Patricia looked around the room that had witnessed so much transformation. "It's just, when we first became roommates, I never imagined I'd be living with a woman named Maria instead of a guy named Finley." "Life's funny that way," Maria agreed. "Who knows where we'll be in another year?" "Wherever it is, promise me one thing," Patricia said. "What's that?" "Always make sure you grab the right shoes in the morning." Maria laughed, a sound full of freedom and possibility.
"Some mistakes are worth making once."
As she prepared for bed that night,
Maria placed her red stilettos carefully in their designated spot in her now organized closet. They held a place of honor among her growing collection of women's shoes, a reminder that sometimes finding yourself means stepping into unfamiliar territory. The journey hadn't been without challenges. There had been uncomfortable family conversations, stares from strangers, moments of self-doubt. But standing firmly in her identity now, Maria knew she wouldn't trade her path for anything. The accidental red stilettos had been just the beginning. The real journey had been learning to walk confidently in her own shoes, whatever form they took. And that journey, Maria reflected as she drifted toward sleep, was only just beginning. The following Monday brought a quarterly strategy meeting, eerily reminiscent of the one where it had all started. This time, Maria entered the conference room with purpose, her red heels clicking confidently against the hardwood floor. The sound announced her presence before she even spoke. "Good morning, everyone," she greeted, taking her place at the table not as an analyst, but as team lead. CEO Margaret Wilson nodded approvingly from the head of the table.
Maria, those projections ready? We're eager to see what your team has prepared.
"All set," Maria confirmed, opening her presentation with practiced ease. As she guided the executive team through complex financial models, Maria caught a glimpse of her reflection in the glossy conference table surface. The woman looking back, confident, competent, authentic, had always been there, waiting to emerge. All it had taken was the wrong pair of shoes to find her way to exactly where she belonged.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!